Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first of three winter career discussions. Today, we're going to be talking about exploring careers through networking. My name is Heather Fortenberry. I'm the Assistant Director for Career Exploration, and I work in our Central Career Services office in Barnes Hall. So right across from Willard Straight and next to the campus store. Again, feel free for those of you who are joining us today, feel free to put questions in the chat if you'd like to, as I'm walking through. If you have any questions that come up, I'll either try to stop and address those at the moment, or we'll definitely save those time for questions and a more of a discussion after I walk through some of the slides. But welcome. Hope everyone had a nice winter break. So just to kind of get us started, giving you a sense of what my hopes are in the next 20 minutes to provide with some of those learning outcomes. I really want to emphasize why it's important to explore and research career paths, mostly because you're the one that's going to be working and we want to make sure it's a good fit for you. Really focusing today on how networking can be helpful as you're exploring, but also how networking can give you some guidance in what opportunities are out there, how to connect with people to learn from them. If they're the ones that are in those careers at the moment and in those positions. So it's going to be really helpful to have these conversations. And I'm going to use the word networking because a lot of people know that word, but I also really want to emphasize that this word is really about building connections, building relationships, and you're all doing that already, even if it's not in a formal networking opportunity. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of different ways of looking at this process. So we always like to start off our workshops with our career development cycle. It's a helpful reminder that you are continually going to be either reflecting on who you are, your strengths, your interests, values, skills, goals. You will always be looking at kind of these different exploration opportunities, whether you're in your full-time job or just starting off in your academic career and really trying to figure out what you want to do. And there are a lot of resources, including networking, to help you do that. And so my workshop really kind of falls in that exploring options today. But that does help you as you're moving forward through the cycle to find those opportunities that are a good fit for you, to really be able to articulate in a resume, cover letter, interview why you're a good fit because you took that time to really understand yourself and be able to explore a little bit of those options so that you have a good understanding of who you are and why you're drawn to these different career paths or responsibilities or positions or industries. So as we talk about exploring careers, and I'm just noticing that I'm just going to kind of like pop through here, and you think about like why is it important to explore careers? And I've already started talking a little bit about it, but it does help you really understand not just your goals, like that future career path, but it can help you think about values. Do you want to work close to where you grew up or further away? What do the salary ranges look like? What are the company culture even that you're considering? Is that kind of aligned with your values? It also can help you think about coursework that can help you build skills. And obviously thinking about your interests. So really exploring careers, that some of the important reasons why you would want to explore careers is to kind of check some of those boxes to really help you as you move forward. This exploration part really can also help you align your strengths, your skills, your interests, and your values, as I mentioned, with those career options and goals. I kind of emphasize values to start off with because I think a lot of times we as individuals kind of forget that that's a really important component. Values can be, as I mentioned, it could be financial, it could be location, it could be spiritual, physical, mental, like it could really incorporate so many of these different aspects that really help you understand better why you're a good fit. Does the company culture align with what your interests are and what you believe in? Exploring careers, this is like some of my favorite parts too, is really helps you try on a career through conversations. Sometimes we talk about job shadowing, which is really just observing. So, your time at Cornell is limited. You've got a couple of summers to kind of explore, maybe winter breaks. maybe other breaks that you're thinking about. And so sometimes just having these conversations with an individual is going to give you a sense of like, you know what, I want to learn more about that industry. Or just as important, having those conversations with an individual could help you determine that maybe you don't want to learn more about that industry, or maybe it's not a good fit for you. And it's really valuable. The job observation or job shadowing, it's not like a formal experience, but sometimes in these conversations, an individual might say, "Hey, why don't you come and we'll give you a tour of our office. You can sit in on a meeting or two." And sometimes that does give you a really good sense of like what the day to day might look like, or how you could really visualize like, wow, I could be a really good fit for this organization. This can also, as I mentioned before, really guide some of those academic and co-curricular opportunities. A lot of times, Aline and I we both advise students, and sometimes we'll have students who come in who are from what I'll consider like a non-traditional major for the career path. And we know that any major can almost go into any career path, but you might in your classes you might not be learning about financial modeling, but maybe you could join a project team, or maybe you could take a certain class if you're interested in that direction, or maybe you're interested in computer science, but you're not a computer science major, but you want to learn Python. So again, having a sense of this and exploring those careers can really be helpful as you're kind of taking that next step. And I just said this, but I'll say it again. Employers really are looking for skills, not necessarily specific majors. That's not like across the board rule, but in many cases, they're not looking for a specific major. They really are looking to see that you have some of those skills. And how would you know what skills those are unless you start doing a little bit of networking, which is why we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But I also want to emphasize kind of that point that I just made, is that employers are looking for skills, not necessarily the majors. We, Career Services at Cornell, we are part of an organization called NACE, which stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And every year, this organization does what we call is a job outlook survey. So they survey employers from lots of different industries to ask, what skills are you looking for from your employees? And ultimately, it comes down to these 8 top skills. You all have these. You're here at Cornell. It might be hard for you to think sometimes about examples of some of these, but you have experience, or you're also building on these experiences. Career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, problem solving, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. So as you start having these conversations or start thinking and exploring about what types of careers, or even like what skills here are you really excited about, this can really help you generate some questions as part of this conversation. What skills do you need to be an analyst? What skills do you need to have like field work and do research? It's going to give you a really good sense of like, oh yeah, you know what? We use this technology a lot, or communication is really key because you're collaborating with these groups of people. And that will give you a sense also of like, is that a good fit or not for me? Is that what I want to do? So this leads into why networking, and how do we use networking for exploring careers? So a couple key things that I always like to talk about. One, Elaine and I, we talk about networking all the time in our conversations with students. And I'll just share with you that networking is not something that comes naturally to me, but it is something that we do on a daily basis. And if you kind of think of networking as that relationship building and that kind of strategy to connect with people, to find those connections, it really can be much more enjoyable. And ultimately, networking is this two-way process. It's a conversation. You are sharing information, the person sharing information, you're really building on this relationship, regardless of whether it's a one-time conversation or not. As I keep emphasizing, it is absolutely going to be a way for you to explore careers, to understand what options are out there, to understand, honestly, even like what goals that person has that you're talking to. Maybe those goals align with you, or maybe you didn't think about that goal, and that's something that kind of ends up getting folded into your strategy. It is absolutely an ongoing process. And A lot of times networking or this relationship building comes into the conversation as you're looking for a job, as you're looking for an internship. But the honest truth is, this is something, again, especially as we're thinking about exploring careers, that's really important to incorporate in your day to day, your networking, or you're having conversations with professors, with classmates, right? And you're learning from them as well. And even if it's, again, doesn't seem like you're networking, you're learning, you're collecting, you're doing a little bit of research on yourself. Maybe you're curious why a classmate is taking a certain class or what they're doing over the summer. Maybe you want to know why a professor, kind of what their path was to becoming a faculty member or the type of research that they're doing. People have a lot of information to share. And especially when we're talking about alumni, Cornell alumni specifically, they have literally been in a very similar situation as you. And so, really kind of understanding that they have a lot of great information. This is a great way for you to interact and connect. And yes, once you prepare and practice a little bit, it's going to help you feel more confident. So as you're building your network, as you're thinking about who do I connect with, who do I already connect with, you can think about sitting down and just writing out a contact list. Who are some people that are close to you, family, friends, maybe teachers that you had in high school or professors. Find some opportunities to meet people, and there will be opportunities this semester for some networking broadly across the university. So keep an eye on that, and we'll give you some tips on how to do that. Think about what is your strategy? How many people, like realistically, can you reach out to in a week? It is not a number bigger than 5. Really be strategic. Think about that quality versus quantity. You know what? This week I'm really busy. I've got a lot of exams. I can only meet one person today. Let me just reach out to them. Or maybe this semester, I'm going to try to reach out to 2 people because that's a good goal for me. Following companies, organizations, influencers, you can do that through platforms like LinkedIn or even like Instagram or Snapchat. Like there's lots of different ways of like engaging, even if it's kind of more passive, by learning about these organizations through different platforms. And requesting introduction. So as you're having a conversation, I might be like, hey, Elaine, that was such a great conversation. Are there other people or even other resources that you would recommend? And maybe Elaine's like, I do. Or maybe she's like, I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that one. We'll be like, all right, sounds good. But that's like a nice phrase that's easy to kind of incorporate. As you are getting ready to network, setting goals, doing a little bit of research. I'm going to show you some platforms to help you access some of these great resources to help you kind of become a little bit more prepared for this, but preparing questions, being curious. That curiosity is so important because it feels more genuine then when you're having conversations. Sometimes I'll have students ask, like, what are the best informational interview questions? And I'm like, well, what are you interested in? What questions do you have? Because it's going to be more relevant for you too. It's going to fit into your goals better. Again, that introduction, this is you introducing yourself. A quick way to kind of think about this is like, what are you interested in? What are some of your goals? What are some of your skills that you like want to highlight, and incorporating that into the conversation? And obviously with networking, the follow-up and maintaining connections is going to be really important. Career exploration doesn't just like happen in a 30-minute conversation. It's likely going to take a couple of connections to really have a better understanding of what you're interested in and crossing off those parts that you're not. So obviously at the end of any interaction, making sure you send a thank you note. Try to be organized. Who did you talk to? What were some of the like quick little bullet points that, your takeaways? When might you want to reach out to them again? Did they give you any action steps that you want to follow through with? This gives you an opportunity to make that second impression. And yes, we're talking about how you use networking for career exploration, but these interactions could lead to an opportunity, an internship, a job observation, a job shadow, maybe that full-time job down the road. And ultimately, when you're having these conversations, we refer to this as an informational interview. So it's really an opportunity for you to have a chunk of time. Sometimes it might be an in-person conversation. Sometimes it'll be virtually or on the phone, but it could be, 20 minutes. It could be an hour. Sometimes an informational interview could be a little bit longer than that, but In most cases, it's going to be like 30 minutes. It does, again, give you these same things that we're talking about with this career exploration, helping you to explore, to prepare, to understand better what it's like to work in an organization. What are some of the challenges of working in this industry, or the things that that person likes about their job? But it definitely gives you those insider tips, and potentially, again, helps you connect to other people that might be able to answer some questions that maybe that individual is not able to, so that's maybe they work for the organization, but they're not able to talk to your specific interest in marketing, for example. So this is all building up to CU eLinks, which is Cornell's networking platform. I'm not going to go into this in detail because I actually will be presenting on this twice a semester virtually. So do check and handshake and join me for a little bit more in depth. But I want to give you just a very quick overview. Again, this is a great platform for students to connect to Cornell University alumni. And this is a great way for alumni who want to volunteer. They opt in to be a resource. So you as a student can do some searching on the platform. It's very similar to LinkedIn, but just for the Cornell community. You can send messages, you can request meetings. For those of you who want to stick around, I can show you this a little bit more in detail after our session, but I'll just show you very quickly a couple of different screenshots. This is basically the dashboard. You can see there's a lot of ways to kind of navigate through this platform, exploring careers, obviously through networking. You can always update your profile. You can find people, you can message people. When you click on that button, it gives you some different like tools and templates to use. And you can also request a meeting, which is going to take you to a calendar and basically give you the option to indicate how you want to meet with someone, the times that you might want to meet with someone, and then you send it off to them. So this is a great way to interact with alumni, again, who have opted into this platform to be a resource. The other great resource that we always encourage students to access is LinkedIn. There is another great way to really search in this system to find people. Usually I go to the search bar, type in Cornell University, there's an alumni tab, and this also gives you an opportunity to just kind of plug in some terms, use this filter to find people that are interesting, that you would like to talk to, that are like kind of along the lines of what your career path would be. And then the Career Development Toolkit, there's lots of different modules. Hopefully you all at least usually I hear students now say like, oh, it looks familiar to me, or I think I have it as part of my Canvas. You do. You absolutely have it as part of your Canvas, but there's so many different modules. And I'm going to just highlight 3 that I think are great, especially as you think about exploration and networking. The first one is we have an assessments module. Assessments are like career tests, personality tests, values assessments. Some of the ones that I really enjoy having students do is the ONET interest inventory. So it kind of asks you 60 questions about like what your interests and skills are. Some of these you can access on your own. Others, like the strengths assessment, which is that last one there, you do need to schedule an appointment with an advisor just so that we can walk you through the process. But this is a really helpful tool to just give you some different ideas, a little brainstorming about like what you might want to explore a little bit if you're completely not sure where to go for that next step. There's a whole exploration module as well. So some of the things that we're talking about today are in here. Always, I'm going to say there are so many resources. So again, I just highlighted 4 that I really enjoy sharing with students. Pathways, which talks about kind of academic pathways. So sometimes students are like, what classes should I take my junior year? Gives you a way to kind of play around in the system. Career outcomes dashboard, which shows where students are graduating and going after graduation. Buzzfile is just kind of a fun free platform that shows traditional major to career paths, and again, sometimes helps you explore. And you can also just Google like, what can I do with my major? Sometimes you can find some really interesting things that obviously Google is pulling in a whole bunch of information from a lot of different areas. And then, of course, because we're talking about networking, the networking platform is the module in the toolkit is really great. So many different like questions that you can pull for informational interviews, how to connect with somebody. That's always a question that people have. What happens if someone doesn't respond? Yes, it doesn't feel good, but guess what? You get to like maybe send them a follow-up email or reach out to us because we can give you some strategies on that. As we wrap things up, I just want to highlight a couple of other resources. Our new website, you can subscribe to this and you get basically a little email newsletter. There are different career communities. There's also different paths, like career paths that you can explore, identities and affinities. You can access this even as an alum, and you can see there's lots of great resources here that we basically will, if you subscribe, we'll send you kind of a compiled email that incorporates the parts of the site that you really want to follow. All right, we're a little over that 20-minute mark, but as we think about next steps, I always like to give students like, now what? I've given you a lot of information in a short amount of time. And again, we're focusing on networking and how to use that to explore. So do go into the toolkit and review some of these different modules that I just mentioned. Find opportunities to network. That networking could be a formal event that would be in handshake with an employer or an alum. It could also be networking with a classmate in a club or organization. So it doesn't have to be super formal. When you're waiting online at the dining hall, chat with someone in front of you or behind you. Check in. How was their day? You never know what that could lead to. Do create a profile and CU eLinks. Absolutely. Create a LinkedIn profile. If you're like, how do I do any of this? Schedule an appointment with one of our advisors. That is what we're here for. I believe, are sending these slides out as well, or you'll have access to the video, the recording as well. But lots of different ways of connecting with us. So on the left-hand side, those links are going to take you to the Central Career Services office. And we also have a QR code down here to the lower right corner where you can also access your College Career Services office. So again, you've got lots of great resources.